Commander Vorik Talon gazed through the reinforced viewport of the eternal dominance at the swirling storms of Jupiter. His four eyes blinked in sequence, an involuntary tic that had begun to manifest over the past few rotations. The gas giant's turbulent atmosphere mirrored the unease growing within him, though he would never admit such weakness to his crew. "Commander, the Daily Conquest Report." Captain Mira Za approached with practiced deference, her scaled skin catching the blue-tinted light of the bridge. She extended a data tablet, careful to keep her gaze lowered. Vorik took the tablet without acknowledgement. 37 rotations into what should have been a routine conquest, and the reports remained unsatisfying. He scrolled through the statistics with mounting irritation. "These numbers are unacceptable," he finally said, voice low, but carrying across the command deck. The bustling activity around him slowed perceptibly. 3 outposts secured on their 4th planet, minimal resistance on their lunar base, and yet their home world remains. He searched for the appropriate word. Uncooperative. The humans have proven somewhat more resourceful than intelligence suggested. "Commander," Mira offered cautiously. Vorik's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair continued scanning the report. "The Draconian Empire has conquered 37 systems. Captain Z, 37. Many with far more advanced technology than this backwater dirt sphere." He gestured dismissively toward the distant blue dot that was Earth. "Their vessels barely achieve sublight speeds. Their weapon systems are rudimentary at best. Their communications technology operates on frequencies we mastered 10 millennia ago." "Yes, Commander, but nothing," Vorik cut her off. "The Supreme Council expects results. We detected their primitive radio signals less than 100 of their years ago. Their development timeline suggested an easy conquest. Precisely why this sector was assigned to me." The implication hung in the air. A straightforward mission, beneath his abilities, yet now potentially threatening his standing. Lieutenant Jakor approached from the tactical station, his movements stiff with formality. "Commander, we've detected unusual activity in the asteroid belt. Several of their mining operations appear to have ceased transmitting." "Fleeing, no doubt," Vorik said dismissively. "Their outer colonies are falling back to their precious Earth." He handed the tablet back to Mira with a sharp gesture. "Prepare the secondary fleet for advancement. We've given these humans enough time to contemplate their position. The blockade has been in place for 20 rotations. Their supplies must be dwindling." "Commander," Mira began carefully, "our intelligence division has noted some peculiarities in human behavior patterns. They don't respond to threats in the way our predictive models anticipated." Vorik turned his full attention to her now, all 4 eyes focused with predatory intensity. "Explain." Mira hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "In our 37 previous conquests, once a species recognizes our technological superiority, they typically enter negotiations to minimize casualties. Humans have shown no inclination toward this pattern. Instead, they've gone silent, withdrawn their diplomatic representatives, and appear to be waiting." "Waiting for what?" Vorik scoffed. "Divine intervention? The eternal dominance alone could reduce their major cities to ash. The entire 7th Fleet stands ready to secure this system. What could they possibly be waiting for?" Before Mira could respond, the bridge lighting flickered momentarily. A heartbeat later, the tactical officer called out, "Commander, multiple contacts appearing from behind Jovian Moon Callisto." Vorik spun toward the main tactical display. "Identification?" "Human vessels, sir. But there's something wrong with the readings. They're not matching any known configuration in our database." The commander strode to the tactical station, shoving a junior officer aside. The display showed a dozen small craft emerging from Callisto's shadow. Their signatures were erratic, pulsing in ways that confused the draconian sensors. "They're transmitting on all frequencies, sir," the communications officer reported. "It's just noise." Jamming, Jakor said with sudden realization. They're flooding our sensors with garbage data. Vorik's mandibles clicked in annoyance. A primitive tactic. Activate secondary sensor arrays. Burn through their interference. Already attempting, sir, but... The ship shuddered violently. Warning klaxons blared across the bridge. Impact on lower hull sectors, a voice called out. Multiple projectiles. Impossible, Vorik hissed. Our position was cloaked. How did they target? Another impact, stronger this time, sent several officers stumbling. The main lights failed, plunging the bridge into emergency red illumination. Status report, Vorik demanded. Mira was already at a secondary console. Hull breach on decks 17 through 20. Kinetic weapons, crude but effective. They appear to be... Sir, they're firing mining explosives at us. Industrial-grade materials. Mining explosives? Vorik repeated incredulously. They're attacking a draconian warship with industrial tools? The tactical display flickered, then stabilized, showing new information. Sir, Jakor said, voice tight with confusion. The human vessels appear to be sacrificial. Minimal life support. Maximum thrust. They're on deliberate collision courses. Vorik's experience snapped into focus. Evasive maneuvers, all power to forward shields. The massive flagship began to turn, but its size, once a point of pride for Vorik, now made it ponderous against the small, agile human crafts swarming like insects. 3 more impacts, an officer called out. They're targeting our propulsion systems. On the main viewport, Vorik watched as one of the human ships, little more than a retrofitted mining vessel, accelerated directly toward them. At the last moment, it veered slightly, scraping along the flagship's shield perimeter, detonating its payload of mining explosives. The shield flared brilliant blue, holding, but the energy drain was significant. They're not trying to destroy us, Mira said quietly beside him. They're testing our defenses. Vorik's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession. All batteries, open fire, destroy those vessels. Targeting systems are struggling with the jamming, Commander, Jakor reported. Then fire blindly, Vorik roared. Saturate the approach vectors. The Eternal Dominance's weapon systems came to life, sending lances of energy into the space around them. Some found targets, human vessels disappearing in brief flares of light, but many more shots disappeared harmlessly into the void. Commander, Mira said, studying her console, I'm detecting larger vessels emerging from beyond Europa. At least 30 craft. Heavy configuration. Vorik felt a chill run through his carapace. The humans don't have 30 heavy warships. Our intelligence was clear. Their combined planetary fleet consists of 18 vessels capable of reaching this far into their system. Sir, Jakor interrupted, the new contacts. They're not registering as having life forms aboard. Drones, Vorik asked. Possibly. Or... Jakor manipulated the controls, trying to get clearer readings through the jamming. They could be decoys, false signatures. The bridge fell silent as this information sank in. The Draconian Empire had encountered many species, many tactics, but none had employed this particular strategy before. Status of the rest of the fleet? Vorik demanded. The jamming is affecting intership communications. The communications officer reported. We have partial contact with approximately 60% of our vessels. Another impact rocked the flagship. The tactical display showed 3 more human craft on approach vectors. This is... Vorik struggled to find the word. Inconvenient. He turned to Mira. Deploy scout ships. I want visual confirmation of what we're facing. Commander, she replied. Scout ships have already been launched from the lower bays. They're reporting confusion. The human vessels appear to be constantly changing configuration. Some are ejecting debris that mimics ship signatures. Others are projecting false energy readings. How? Vorik demanded. How are they coordinating this? We've blocked all their known communication frequencies. Mira and Jakor exchanged glances. Sir, Jakor finally said. "We believe they may be using methods we haven't encountered before. Possibly light-based communications our systems don't recognize as signals, or pre-programmed attack sequences." The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Emergency force fields activated in several sections of the bridge as small breaches appeared in the ceiling. "Damage report," Vorik called out. "Multiple hull breaches on decks 1 through 5, an officer responded. "Primary power conduits failing. Shields at 62% and falling." Vorik slammed a clawed hand against the command console. "This is unacceptable. They are primitives. Their most advanced weapon is a fusion bomb, barely past the fission stage." "Sir," Mira said, her voice now carrying an edge of urgency, "we're detecting a massive energy surge near the 4th planet." All eyes turned to the main display. Near Mars, a swirling vortex of energy had appeared, growing rapidly in size and intensity. "What is that?" Vorik demanded. "Some sort of weapon?" Jakor worked frantically at his console. "Energy signature is unknown, sir. Nothing like this in our records. It's creating some sort of spatial distortion." The vortex expanded, its center a churning maelstrom of blue-white energy. And then, impossibly, ships began to emerge from it. Not one or two, but dozens. Then hundreds. "That's not possible," Vorik whispered. "They don't have this technology. They can't have this technology." The human vessels pouring from the vortex were unlike any they had cataloged before. Sleeker, faster, their hulls adorned with unfamiliar weapon systems. "New contacts are accelerating toward our position," Jakor reported, his voice hollow with disbelief. "Estimated time to interception, 3 minutes." Vorik stood frozen, his 4 eyes fixed on the impossible scene unfolding before him. In all his cycles of service to the Empire, he had never witnessed anything like this. A species that, by all intelligence reports, should have surrendered at the first show of force, was now deploying technology that rivaled, perhaps even exceeded, their own. "All vessels," he finally commanded. "Battle formation Talon 7. Concentrate fire on the new arrivals." But even as he gave the order, he knew it wouldn't be enough. The bridge of the Eternal Dominance, once a monument to draconian military precision, had descended into barely controlled chaos. Officers called out reports of failing systems, of communication blackouts with other fleet vessels, of strange energy readings that defied analysis. And still, the human ships came, pouring from the vortex like a flood, breaking through a dam. "Sir," Mira said quietly beside him, "I believe we may have miscalculated." Vorik could only watch as the first wave of the new human fleet engaged his scattered forces. The battle that followed would forever change his understanding of warfare, of conquest, and of the species called human. The Eternal Dominance shuddered as another volley of weapons fire impacted its weakening shields. Commander Vorik Talon gripped the edges of the tactical display, his claws leaving scratch marks in the metallic surface. Around him, the bridge crew worked frantically to respond to the overwhelming assault. "Shields at 28%, Lieutenant Jakor reported, his voice strained. "Multiple breaches on decks 20 through 35. Weapon systems operating at reduced capacity." Vorik stared at the tactical display with disbelief. In just 10 minutes of engagement, his fleet had lost nearly 60% of its strength. The human vessels moved with impossible precision, targeting weak points in draconian ship design that should have been unknown to them. "How?" he demanded of no one in particular. "How are they doing this?" Captain Mira, Z, approached, her normally immaculate uniform now torn and stained with the blue-green blood of their species. "Commander, we've managed to capture some of their communications. They're using a frequency-hopping system we've never encountered before. Their coordination is remarkable." "Show me," Vorik commanded. Mira nodded to a communications officer, who activated a holographic display. Fragments of human communications flickered in and out, voice transmissions overlaid with data packets that changed frequency thousands of times per second. "We're only catching pieces," Mira explained. "But it appears they've been preparing for this engagement for some time. There are references to something called Operation Hammerfall." Vorik's upper eyes narrowed. "They named their defense strategy? The arrogance." "Sir," Jakor interrupted, "we've lost contact with the entire third quadrant of the fleet. The human vessels from the portal are systematically targeting our command ships. Another impact rocked the flagship, more violent than the previous ones. Emergency lighting flickered, and for a moment, the bridge was plunged into darkness before backup systems engaged. "Primary power core destabilizing," an engineering officer called out. "Containment fields at critical levels." Vorik turned to Mira, all four of his eyes wide with a realization he had never expected to face. "They're going to destroy us. Not capture, not force surrender. Destroy." "Commander," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies, breaking through our encryption." "On screen," Vorik ordered, straightening his posture despite the chaos around him. A draconian commander did not show weakness, even in defeat. The main display flickered, then stabilized to show a human female. Her skin was dark, her hair cropped close to her skull, and she wore a uniform adorned with symbols of rank that their cultural database identified as indicating high authority. Her expression was not triumphant, nor angry, merely determined. "This is Admiral Tessa Blackwell of Earth's United Defense Force," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "Your fleet is defeated. Commander Talon, your ships are being systematically disabled or destroyed. You have 10 minutes to power down weapon systems and lower your shields, or we will be forced to conclude that you intend to fight to the last. There will be no survivors in that scenario." Vorik hissed softly. "How does she know my name?" "We've been monitoring your communications since you entered our system," Admiral Blackwell continued, as if answering his question. "We've had 37 days to study your language, your tactics, your weaknesses. This is your only warning. 10 minutes." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in silence, save for the alarms and damage reports that continued to flow in. "Options," Vorik demanded, turning to his senior officers. Jakor spoke first. "Our remaining fleet vessels are scattered, communications compromised. The human forces continue to emerge from the portal near Mars. Current count exceeds 3,000 vessels." 3,000, Vorik repeated incredulously. "That's more ships than they have cities on their world." "The portal appears to be some form of faster-than-light technology we haven't encountered before," Mira added. "They could be bringing reinforcements from elsewhere in their system. Or what?" Vorik prompted when she hesitated. "Or it could be a deception," she finished. "An elaborate illusion to make their forces appear more numerous than they are." Vorik considered this possibility. It aligned with the tactics they had already witnessed: jamming, decoys, false signatures. But the damage being inflicted on his fleet was very real. "Status of our escape vectors?" he asked. Jakor consulted his display. "Heavily compromised, sir. The human vessels have positioned themselves to blockade all direct routes out of the system. They've been hurting us, directing our movements through their attack patterns." Another impact shook the ship, this one accompanied by the distinctive sound of tearing metal. "Hull breach on Deck 1, an officer shouted. "They've penetrated the command section." Vorik watched as emergency force fields activated, containing the breach, but glowing ominously close to where he stood. 7 minutes remaining, Commander, Mira said quietly. For the first time in his long career, Vorik Talon found himself facing a choice he had never anticipated: surrender or annihilation. The Draconian Empire did not surrender. It conquered. It ruled. It occasionally retreated to regroup, but it never surrendered. Yet he looked around at his bridge, at the crew who had served him loyally through dozens of successful campaigns, and saw in their eyes what he refused to acknowledge in himself: fear. "Casualties?" he asked. 42% of crew reporting injuries," Mira answered promptly. 17% confirmed dead. Medical bays overwhelmed. Vorik's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of intense stress he couldn't fully suppress. "And the human tactics. They're specifically targeting our weapons and propulsion, not life support or crew quarters." "Correct, Commander," Jakor confirmed. "They appear to be limiting casualties where possible." Another explosion rocked the ship, closer this time. The tactical display sputtered and died, then rebooted to show even more human vessels surrounding their position. 5 minutes, sir," Mira reported. Vorik closed all four of his eyes briefly, an uncharacteristic gesture of resignation. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Open a channel to the human admiral," he ordered. The communications officer worked quickly. "Channel open, sir." Vorik stood at his full height, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Admiral Blackwell, this is Commander Vorik Talon of the Draconian Empire flagship Eternal Dominance. To prevent further loss of life, I am accepting your terms. Weapons powering down. Shields lowering." He gestured sharply to Jakor, who hesitated only briefly before entering the commands. Throughout the bridge, weapons control stations went dark as systems were deactivated. "A wise decision, Commander," Admiral Blackwell's voice responded. "Maintain your position. A delegation will dock with your vessel shortly. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate destruction." The transmission ended. Vorik turned to face his bridge crew, who stared at him with expressions ranging from shock to relief to barely concealed outrage. "Commander," one of the younger officers spoke up, "this is unprecedented. The Empire has never faced these humans before." Vorik cut him off. "Record this in the ship's log. I take full responsibility for this decision." He turned to Mira and Jakor. "You will accompany me to meet this delegation. The rest of you, secure your stations and attend to the wounded." As the crew dispersed to carry out his orders, Vorik moved to the viewport, gazing out at the debris field that had once been a significant portion of the mighty Seventh Fleet. Among the wreckage, human vessels moved with purpose, securing disabled Draconian ships, rescuing escape pods. "They're saving our survivors," he noted with surprise. Mira joined him at the viewport. "Yes, Commander. It appears their goal was indeed neutralization, not extermination." "A curious approach to warfare," Vorik mused. "But then, everything about these humans has defied our understanding." He turned to her, his voice lowered. "In your analysis, Captain Z, what did we miss? How did we so catastrophically misjudge this species?" Mira considered the question carefully before responding. "I believe, sir, that we made a fundamental error in our assessment. We judged their technological capability by what they displayed, not by what they might be capable of under pressure, and we failed to account for their adaptability." Vorik nodded slowly. "A costly lesson." He straightened his uniform, dignity reasserting itself despite their defeat. "Come, let us meet these humans who have accomplished what 37 other species could not." The shuttle bay of the Eternal Dominance had never seemed so cavernous as it did now, awaiting the arrival of the human delegation. Commander Vorik stood flanked by Captain Mira and Lieutenant Jakor, along with a minimal honor guard, a formality that felt hollow under the circumstances. "They're approaching," the docking officer announced. "One vessel, small configuration, appears to be a diplomatic shuttle." Vorik watched through the atmospheric containment field as the human craft maneuvered into the bay. It was sleek, unmarked by weapon systems, its design elegant in a way that contradicted their previous intelligence about human aesthetics. "Atmospheric seal confirmed," the officer reported. They're requesting permission to disembark. Granted, Vorik said, his voice betraying none of the turmoil he felt. The shuttle's hatch opened smoothly, and 4 humans emerged. Admiral Blackwell led them, her presence commanding even among beings who towered over her physically. Behind her came 3 others, a male with silver-streaked hair, wearing a different uniform style, a female in civilian attire who carried herself with scientific precision, and another male whose clothing suggested administrative rather than military function. "Commander Talon," Admiral Blackwell greeted him, her voice carrying easily across the bay. "Thank you for your cooperation. I am Admiral Tessa Blackwell. With me are General Marcus Drake, Director Sophia Santiago of Advanced Research, and Dr. Akira Tanaka, our xenobiology specialist." Vorik inclined his head slightly, a minimal courtesy. "I am Commander Vorik Talon. My senior officers, Captain Miraze and Lieutenant Jakor." He paused, mandibles clicking once in agitation. "I must inquire about the status of my fleet." "Your remaining vessels have been secured," Blackwell replied. "Casualties are being treated by our medical teams. We've taken 26 of your ships intact. 38 were destroyed in combat, and the rest have been disabled, but remain salvageable." The clinical assessment of the 7th Fleet's destruction sent a shudder through Vorik's carapace, but he maintained his composure. "And my crew?" "Will be treated according to our protocols for prisoners of war," Blackwell said. "Which are, I assure you, humane by any standard." Vorik noted her choice of words. Not humanitarian, a species-centric term, but humane. A subtle distinction that suggested consideration for non-human sensibilities. "If you would accompany us," Blackwell continued, "we have arranged secure accommodations aboard our orbital station Alpha. There, we can discuss the terms that will govern the cessation of hostilities." "You speak as though we are at war," Vorik observed. Yet, this was to be a routine conquest, not a war between equals. For the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed Admiral Blackwell's face, something like grim amusement. "Yes, we gathered as much from your communications. That was your first miscalculation." The human, called Dr. Tanaka, stepped forward slightly. "Commander, if I may, our research suggests draconian physiology requires specific atmospheric conditions and nutritional supplements. We've prepared accommodations accordingly. If there are additional requirements for your comfort, please inform us." Vorik blinked his 4 eyes in sequence, surprised by this consideration. "That is acceptable." "Before we depart," Director Santiago spoke up, her voice carrying the precision of a scientific mind. "I would like to clarify our expectations. You will be treated with dignity as military officers. In return, we expect full cooperation and transparency. Earth has no interest in protracted conflict, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves with all necessary force." "As you have amply demonstrated," Vorik acknowledged. General Drake, who had remained silent until now, fixed Vorik with a penetrating stare. "Commander, I'm curious. In the 37 systems your empire has conquered, did any species ever surprise you the way we have?" The question caught Vorik off guard. He considered his answer carefully, aware that every word would be analyzed. "No," he finally admitted. "None employed tactics similar to yours. Most followed predictable patterns of resistance." Drake nodded as if confirming a theory. "That's what we thought. Shall we proceed?" Vorik turned to Mira and Jakor. "Secure the ship in our absence. Implement emergency protocols Delta 9. The code would ensure that certain sensitive technologies and information would be destroyed rather than captured." Though after the display of human capabilities he had witnessed, he wondered if such precautions were even relevant anymore. The journey to the human orbital station was conducted in a silence thick with unspoken questions. Vorik observed the human craft's interior with new eyes, noting details that contradicted their intelligence reports. The technology was more advanced than expected, yet still recognizably functional, rather than ornamental. A practical approach that aligned with the tactics they had employed. As they approached Earth's orbit, Vorik got his first unobstructed view of the human homeworld. The blue-green planet, swirled with white cloud formations, appeared deceptively peaceful from this distance. Yet, somewhere on that surface, a species had developed the capability to defeat the Draconian Empire's most experienced fleet. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Admiral Blackwell commented, noticing his gaze. "Worth defending." "All species believe their homeworld worth defending," Vorik replied. "Few succeed against the Empire." "Perhaps because the Empire has never encountered humans before," she said simply. The orbital station came into view, a massive structure that had not appeared in any of their reconnaissance data. Its construction was modular, suggesting rapid assembly, with sections that clearly served different functions. Most prominently, a large array of what appeared to be weapon systems tracked their approach. "Your station," Vorik noted. "It was not here when we arrived in your system." Director Santiago smiled slightly. "No, it wasn't. Alpha Station was constructed and deployed in the 37 days since your arrival. We've become quite efficient at rapid construction when necessary." Vorik exchanged glances with Mira, whose expression reflected his own disbelief. No species they had encountered could construct a station of this magnitude in such a short time frame. The shuttle docked smoothly with the station, and they were escorted through pristine corridors to a conference room. Unlike the utilitarian design of Draconian military vessels, the human station balanced functionality with an aesthetic that Vorik found unexpectedly pleasing. Curved lines where Draconians would use angles. Natural light from Earth, filtering through strategically placed viewports. The conference room itself featured a large table with seating accommodating both human and Draconian physiology. Displays lined the walls, currently showing various views of Earth and the surrounding space, including, Vorik noted with unease, real-time images of the eternal dominance under heavy guard. "Please be seated," Admiral Blackwell indicated. "Refreshments suitable for your biology have been prepared." As they settled into the conference, Vorik steeled himself for what would undoubtedly be the most difficult negotiation of his career, one conducted not from a position of strength, but from defeat. General Drake activated one of the displays, showing a timeline of the Draconian fleet's movements since entering the solar system. "Let's begin with an assessment of the current situation. Your fleet has been neutralized. Your flagship is under our control. Your empire, however, remains unaware of these developments, as we've been blocking your long-range communications. The Empire will send investigative forces when the 7th Fleet fails to report," Vorik stated, attempting to project confidence he no longer felt. "Yes, we anticipate that," Blackwell nodded. "Which is why time is of the essence in our discussions. Dr. Tanaka, would you begin?" The xenobiologist activated another display, showing detailed analyses of Draconian biology, technology, and cultural structure, information that should have been impossible for the humans to obtain. "Commander," Dr. Tanaka began, "we've been studying your species intensively since detecting your approach vectors 6 months ago. Your probes were identified and managed long before your fleet arrived." "Managed?" Yakor asked, speaking for the first time since their capture. Director Santiago's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held a gleam of satisfaction. "Fed curated information. Your probes observed exactly what we wanted them to observe. A technological level approximately 200 years behind our actual capabilities. Political divisions that don't exist. Military resources significantly underreported." Vorik felt a cold sensation spread through his body. A deception, on a planetary scale. "Precisely," Blackwell confirmed. "While your empire was observing what appeared to be a primitive, divided world ripe for conquest, we were preparing." "The portal," Mira spoke up. The vortex near Mars. That technology doesn't exist. General Drake finished for her. At least, not in the way you think. What you witnessed was an elaborate holographic projection combined with carefully timed ship deployments from concealed positions throughout the system. There was no portal, no impossible technology, just the application of principles your sensors weren't calibrated to detect. Vorik's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation he couldn't suppress. You're claiming that your fleet was hidden throughout the system all along? Impossible. Our scans would have detected them. Not if they were shielded by technology specifically designed to counter draconian sensor configurations. Santiago explained. We studied the remnants of your probe technology very thoroughly. Every frequency, every detection parameter. We developed countermeasures for all of them. But the ships themselves, Vorik insisted. Thousands of vessels. Your planet showed no evidence of such manufacturing capacity. Admiral Blackwell's expression turned grim. Commander Talon, humanity has a long and unfortunate history of preparing for war. When we detected your approach, every nation on Earth united under a single imperative: survival. Industrial capacity was converted, new manufacturing techniques implemented. The ships you faced were constructed in underground facilities, asteroid mining operations, and cloud cities in the upper atmosphere of Venus. And the weapons? Jakor asked. Our intelligence indicated fusion weaponry at best. Your intelligence was incomplete, Drake stated flatly. We've had fusion technology for over a century. What you witnessed was the deployment of targeted EMP weapons, gravitational distortion devices, and kinetic impactors. All technologies we developed but never needed to deploy against each other. Vorik sat in stunned silence, attempting to process the magnitude of the deception and the implications for the Empire. Finally, he asked the question that had been forming since the moment of his surrender. Why are you telling us this? If you intended to defeat us and send a warning to the Empire, you've accomplished that. This level of detail seems unnecessary. Admiral Blackwell leaned forward, her gaze intense. Because, Commander, we're offering you a choice, one that will determine not just your fate, but potentially that of your empire. I'm listening, Vorik said cautiously. Option 1. You and select officers remain as permanent guests of Earth. We send the rest of your surviving crew back to the Empire with a carefully edited record of what occurred, showing a devastating natural phenomenon, perhaps, that destroyed the fleet. The Empire mourns its losses but has no reason to seek revenge. Vorik's upper eyes narrowed. And option 2. You return to your Empire with the complete truth, with evidence of human capabilities, our defensive posture, and our willingness to extend peaceful relations, provided the Draconian Empire agrees to certain non-negotiable terms, primarily involving the recognition of Earth and its colonies as sovereign and off-limits to conquest. You would trust me to deliver such a message? Vorik asked incredulously. After I led a fleet here to subjugate your world? No, Blackwell said bluntly. We wouldn't trust you, but we would send you with irrefutable evidence and a clear demonstration of our capabilities. Your Supreme Council would be left with no reasonable doubt. And why would you prefer the second option? Mira asked perceptively. The first ensures your safety through deception. The second risks future conflict. Director Santiago answered. Because deception is a temporary solution. Eventually, the Empire would discover the truth, perhaps in worse circumstances. We prefer to establish clear boundaries now. And, General Drake added, because we've studied your cultural database extensively. The Draconian Empire respects strength. A natural disaster destroying your fleet would be seen as unfortunate, but wouldn't command the same respect as a species capable of defeating you in direct combat. Vorik found himself nodding slowly, against his will. The human had correctly assessed draconian psychology. A worthy opponent earned consideration that a mere victim never would. You've planned this meticulously, he observed. How long have you been preparing for our arrival? Admiral Blackwell exchanged glances with her colleagues before answering. We detected your initial probes entering the outer solar system 3 years ago. Since then, we've been in what we call a state of blitzkrieg colonization, rapidly expanding our presence throughout our system while presenting a facade of limited capability. 3 years, Vorik repeated. And in that time, you developed countermeasures to technology your species had never encountered before. Humanity has a particular talent for adaptation under pressure, Dr. Tanaka explained. Throughout our history, we have repeatedly demonstrated accelerated development when faced with existential threats. Your arrival merely provided the most significant threat we've faced as a species. Vorik sat back, processing this information. The implications were staggering, not just for his own future, but for the Empire's entire strategy of expansion. I require time to consider these options, he finally said. Of course, Admiral Blackwell agreed. You'll be provided comfortable quarters and access to certain areas of the station under escort. Take 24 hours to discuss with your officers. We'll reconvene tomorrow. As they were escorted from the conference room, Vorik caught a glimpse of Earth through a viewport. The blue marble suspended in darkness, appearing so vulnerable, yet housing a species that had just delivered the Draconian Empire its first significant defeat in millennia. He wondered what other surprises these humans might have in store. The 6 months of Vorik Talon's captivity passed with surprising swiftness. After his initial decision to accept the humans' second option, to return to the Empire with the truth, he had expected restriction, perhaps even humiliation. Instead, he found himself treated with a cautious respect that bordered on collegial. His quarters aboard Alpha Station were comfortable, adapted to Draconian physiology. He was permitted supervised access to many areas of the station, accompanied always by either Admiral Blackwell, General Drake, or one of their senior officers. Miraze and Jakor were similarly accommodated, though kept in separate sections of the station, a precaution Vorik could not fault. Most surprising were the regular briefings he received on human history, culture, and technological development. Far from hiding their capabilities now, the humans seemed intent on ensuring he understood exactly what the Empire would face should they choose to return with hostile intent. Your species has a remarkable capacity for destruction, Vorik observed during one such briefing with Dr. Tanaka. They were reviewing Earth's 20th century, a period of particularly intense warfare and technological advancement. Yes, Tanaka acknowledged without pride or shame. We've nearly destroyed ourselves several times, but each brush with annihilation taught us valuable lessons about cooperation, about the futility of certain conflicts, about the need to channel our competitive instincts into less destructive outlets. Yet you prepared so thoroughly for our arrival, Vorik noted. Weapons, ships, defenses, hardly the actions of a species that has rejected warfare. Tanaka smiled slightly. We haven't rejected warfare, Commander. We've simply recognized its proper place, as a last resort when faced with an existential threat. Your empire represented such a threat. Vorik's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he considered this. The Draconian approach is different. Conquest is the natural order, the means by which the strong rightfully claim resources and territory from the weak. And how has that philosophy served your personal ambitions? Tanaka asked mildly. You were sent to conquer a primitive world, a simple assignment beneath your abilities. Now you return to your empire as the commander who experienced its first major defeat. The question struck deeper than Vorik would have liked to admit. His mandibles clicked once, a tell that Tanaka had learned to recognize as discomfort. The Supreme Council will not blame me for encountering an unexpectedly formidable opponent, he said, with more confidence than he felt. Perhaps not, Tanaka agreed, especially with the evidence we're providing. But the fundamental question remains, will your empire adapt to this new understanding, Or will it cling to assumptions that have now been proven dangerously incorrect? It was a question Vorik had asked himself repeatedly during his captivity. The Draconian Empire had existed for millennia, expanding steadily through conquest. Its hierarchy was rigid, its doctrines rarely questioned. Adaptation was not a quality his species valued. Consistency and tradition were the pillars of their civilization. Yet the humans had demonstrated the power of adaptation. In just 3 years, they had transformed from a planetary civilization to a system-wide presence, developed countermeasures to draconian technology, and unified their fractious global politics around a common threat. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "The Empire has never faced this situation before." Tanaka nodded, seemingly satisfied with this honest assessment. "Then you will be the bearer of unprecedented news, a historic role, Commander Talon." The day of his departure arrived with a formality that bordered on ceremonial. The humans had prepared a small vessel, one of their own design but modified for draconian operation, that would carry him, Mira, and Jakor back to Empire space. Loaded aboard were comprehensive records of the conflict, analyses of human capabilities, and clear documentation of the terms Earth proposed for peaceful coexistence. Admiral Blackwell met them in the docking bay, accompanied by her senior staff. "Commander Talon," she greeted him, "are you prepared for your journey?" "As prepared as one can be to deliver news of defeat," Vorik replied, with unexpected candor. Blackwell's expression remained neutral, but her eyes showed a glimmer of understanding. "Not defeat, Commander. First contact gone awry. An opportunity for a different kind of relationship between our civilizations." "You're an optimist, Admiral," Vorik observed. "I prefer the term pragmatist," she countered. "War between our peoples would be costly for both sides. The Empire would eventually bring more forces than we could repel, but the price would be staggering. We would ensure that—" Vorik inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the truth in her assessment. "The data packages you've provided, they're quite thorough." "They need to be," General Drake said, stepping forward. "Your Supreme Council must understand that further aggression would be inadvisable." "And if they choose aggression regardless?" Vorik asked. "Then we'll be ready." Drake answered simply. "But we prefer the alternative we're offering. Recognized sovereignty, mutual non-interference, and potentially, when both sides are ready, limited cultural and scientific exchange." Director Santiago approached, holding a final data crystal. "This contains information about an unmapped system 17 light-years from here, rich in resources, uninhabited, suitable for draconian colonization. Consider it a gesture of goodwill, and an alternative to conflict over this system." Vorik accepted the crystal with surprise. "You offer us another conquest?" "We offer a sustainable path forward," Santiago corrected. "The universe is vast. There's room for both our civilizations to thrive without conflict." As final preparations were made for their departure, Vorik found himself facing Admiral Blackwell one last time. "A question, Admiral, if I may. The vortex near Mars, you said it was a deception, a holographic projection. Yet the ships that emerged—" "Were real enough," she finished for him. "Deployed from concealed positions throughout the system, timed to appear as if emerging from the vortex. But such coordination, such timing—" Vorik shook his head. "It would require precision beyond what even our technology can achieve." Blackwell smiled enigmatically. "As Dr. Tanaka told you, Commander, humanity excels at adaptation under pressure. We develop technologies specifically to counter your expected tactics." "And if we had employed unexpected tactics?" Vorik pressed. "Then we would have adapted again," she said simply. "That is our greatest strength, not our weapons or our ships, but our capacity to change, to innovate, to find solutions where none seemed possible." With those words lingering in his mind, Vorik boarded the vessel that would carry him home. As they departed Earth orbit, he watched the blue planet recede through the viewport, surrounded by its new defenses, the orbital platforms, the patrol ships, the sensor arrays that had been hidden from draconian detection until the moment of engagement. "A formidable species," Mira commented, joining him at the viewport. "Yes," Vorik agreed, "and one that has forever changed the Empire, whether the Supreme Council realizes it yet or not." The journey back to Draconian space took 42 rotations. During that time, Vorik, Mira, and Jakor reviewed the human data packages extensively, preparing their presentation for the Supreme Council. The more they studied, the more Vorik came to appreciate the thoroughness of the human approach, not just in their military strategy, but in their understanding of draconian psychology and politics. When they finally arrived at Draconis Prime, the capital world of the Empire, they were met with the pomp and circumstance typically afforded to returning conquerors. The Supreme Council, unaware of the Seventh Fleet's fate, had prepared a celebration of another successful expansion of Imperial territory. The reality would be a shock, unlike any the Council had experienced in living memory. The Grand Hall of the Supreme Council stretched before Vorik as he entered, his steps measured and deliberate. The 9 council members sat on elevated platforms, their ancient forms draped in ceremonial garb that denoted their elevated status. Around them, lesser officials and military commanders watched with anticipation, expecting the familiar ritual of conquest recitation. Instead, Vorik Talon, once the Empire's most promising fleet commander, approached the central podium and activated the holographic display with the data crystal provided by the humans. "Esteemed members of the Supreme Council," he began, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. "I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a messenger. The Seventh Fleet has been defeated. The planet Earth remains unconquered, and the Draconian Empire faces a choice it has never before encountered." A murmur of shock rippled through the assembly. The chief counselor, Drex Vor, leaned forward. All 4 of his eyes narrowed to slits. "Explain yourself, Commander Talon, quickly." And so Vorik did, methodically, thoroughly, leaving nothing out. He showed them the recordings of the battle, the devastating effectiveness of human tactics, the technological capabilities that had been hidden until the moment of engagement. He presented the terms offered by Earth, the data on human psychology and adaptability, the alternative system suggested for colonization. Throughout his presentation, the council members' expressions shifted from disbelief to outrage to a reluctant acknowledgement of the reality they now faced. "This is without precedent," Councillor Vor finally declared when Vorik had finished. "You suggest we simply accept this defeat? Allow these humans to dictate terms to the Empire?" "I suggest," Vorik replied carefully, "that we recognize a new reality. The humans are not like the other species we have conquered. Their technology, while different from ours, is equally advanced in many areas and superior in some. Their capacity for rapid adaptation under threat is unlike anything we have encountered." "And if we simply send a larger force?" another counselor demanded. 10 fleets instead of 1? 100? Captain Mira, Z stepped forward. "With respect, Counselor, the humans anticipated this response. They are already implementing system-wide defenses that would make even a larger-scale invasion costly beyond calculation. And their rate of technological advancement under pressure suggests that by the time such a force arrived, their capabilities would have advanced even further." Lieutenant Jakor activated a secondary display, showing projections of human defensive capacity over time. "Based on their demonstrated rate of adaptation during our 37-day presence in their system, we estimate they could achieve parity with our total military capacity within 5 years, if sufficiently motivated by threat." The council chamber fell silent as this information sank in. Finally, the eldest counselor, Trath Zel, spoke, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of experience. "In all my cycles serving the Empire, We have never encountered a species like these humans. Our doctrine has always been clear. The strong conquer the weak. But what do we do when we encounter another strong species? Our ancestors never provided guidance for this situation. Vorik seized the opportunity presented by this philosophical question. Perhaps, honored counselor, this is an opportunity for the Empire to establish new doctrine. Not all resources need be acquired through conquest. Some might be gained through alternative arrangements. You speak of diplomacy, Counselor Vor said, the word carrying a distasteful edge. A concept we abandoned millennia ago as inefficient. I speak of pragmatism, Vorik countered. The humans have offered terms that allow both our civilizations to prosper without conflict. They have even identified an uninhabited system, rich in resources that would suit our colonization needs. They seek not to defeat us, but to establish boundaries. The debate continued for hours, with various counselors questioning Vorik, Mira, and Jakor in exhaustive detail about the human capabilities, tactics, and psychology. Throughout, Vorik maintained the same position, that the Empire faced not a temporary setback, but a fundamental challenge to its expansion doctrine. Finally, after private deliberation among the council members, Counselor Vor delivered their decision. Commander Talon, the Supreme Council acknowledges the unusual circumstances you have encountered. After review of the evidence presented, we accept that immediate military action against these humans would be inadvisable. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. A non-interference directive will be issued regarding the system designated Sol and its inhabitants. Relief washed through Vorik, though he maintained his composed exterior. A wise decision, Counselor. Do not mistake pragmatism for weakness, Vor warned. The Empire will observe these humans. We will study their capabilities, their expansion patterns. Should they ever threaten Imperial interests beyond their system, our response will be definitive. I have conveyed similar sentiments to the human leadership, Vorik assured him. They understand the boundaries of this arrangement. As the formal session concluded and the council members departed, Vorik found himself approached by the eldest counselor, Trath Zel. The ancient Draconian moved slowly, his scales dulled with age, but his 4 eyes remained sharp with intelligence. An interesting species, these humans, Zel observed quietly. In my long service to the Empire, I have studied many conquered civilizations. None have displayed the particular combination of traits you described today. They are unique in my experience as well, Vorik acknowledged. And yet, Zel continued, perhaps there is something to learn from them. This capacity for adaptation, for accelerated development under pressure, it has certain advantages. Vorik studied the elder counselor with new interest. The Empire has not traditionally valued adaptation, stability, tradition, hierarchy. These have been our strengths, and they have served us well. Zel agreed. For 10,000 years, the Empire has expanded without meaningful resistance. But the universe is vast, Commander Talon. It would be arrogance to assume we will never encounter others like these humans, species that challenge our assumptions, that force us to reconsider our methods. What are you suggesting, Counselor? Vorik asked carefully. Zel's mandibles clicked softly, a gesture of contemplation. Merely that your experience might serve the Empire in ways beyond this one encounter. A committee is being formed to study the implications of this new situation. Your perspective would be valuable. It was not the censure Vorik had expected upon his return, not the end of his career, or possibly his life. Instead, it appeared to be an opportunity to influence the future direction of the Empire itself. I would be honored to serve in such a capacity, Vorik said, inclining his head respectfully. As Zel departed, Mira approached from where she had been standing, at a respectful distance. It appears you will survive this debacle after all, Commander, she observed. with a hint of dry humor that characterized their long professional relationship. "So it seems," Vorik agreed, "though the Empire will never be quite the same." "Is that a negative assessment?" she asked perceptively. Vorik considered the question, his four eyes taking in the grand hall that had stood unchanged for thousands of years, much like the Empire's approach to conquest and expansion. "No," he finally decided. "Perhaps it is time for the Empire to learn a lesson these humans seem to have mastered long ago." "And what lesson is that, Commander?" "That sometimes true strength lies not in never failing," Vorik said thoughtfully, "but in how one adapts after failure." As they left the council chamber, Vorik's thoughts returned to Earth, the deceptively fragile-looking blue planet that had delivered the Empire its first significant defeat. He wondered what the humans were doing now, how they were continuing to develop their defenses, their technology, their presence in their system. And he wondered if, someday, the Draconian Empire and humanity might meet again, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals in the vast expanse of space. It was a concept so foreign to Draconian thinking that he had no word for it in his native language. But the humans did. They called it peace. For the first time in his long career, Commander Vorik Talon found himself hoping that such a concept might eventually have a place in the Draconian lexicon as well.